Good morning. Shabbat Shalom to the 12 tribes of Israel that are scattered into the four corners of the earth. Shabbat Shalom and greetings. Greetings to those who are the strangers, not of the bloodline of the 12 tribes, not of the bloodline of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but want to be among, grafted into the 12 tribes of Israel and receive the blessings of worshiping the only true God, Yahweh, in the name of his son, Mashiach, Yahweh Shai. Greetings. Greetings to all that want nothing to do with religion, but want to see a change on the planet from the multitude of violence and corruption and evil that perforates this earth. Greetings. Today we're going to continue in Daniel chapter 11. We did an overview of Daniel 11, and today we're going to go through it. And as I talked to you about last night, I want to also reiterate today. It's a lot of twists and turns in the beginning of Daniel 11. So we're going to go through that. And then we're going to get to the meat of it, which is the establishment of Christianity, and the establishment which is coinciding with the establishment of the Roman Catholic Church. First, let me show you some things. Acts. Well, first of all, let's go back to the Gospel of John for a second. Let's go back to the Gospel of John. The Gospel of John. I'm going to go Gospel of John, chapter, let's see. Chapter 14, Gospel of John, chapter 14. Okay, Gospel of John, chapter 14. Let's start there. Beginning at verse 1. Gospel of John, chapter 14, beginning at verse 1. Let not your heart be troubled. Ye believe in Yah, believe also in me. It's Messiah speaking here. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there ye may be also. And whither I go, ye know, and the way ye know. Thomas said unto him, Master, we know not whither thou goest. How can we know the way? Yahushua said unto him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father, but by me. And if ye had known me, ye should have known my Father also. And from henceforth ye have known him and have seen him. Philip said unto him, Master, show us the Father, and it sufficeth us. Yahushua answered, Yahushua said unto him, Have I been so long time with you, and yet hast thou not known me, Philip? He that hath seen me hath seen the Father. How sayest thou then, show us the Father? Believest thou not that I am in the Father, and the Father in me? The words that I speak unto you, I speak not of myself, but the Father that dwelleth in me, he doeth the works. Believe me that I am in the Father, and the Father in me. Also believe me for the very work's sake. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that believeth on me, the works that I do, shall he do also, and greater works than these shall he do, because I go unto my Father. Whatsoever ye shall ask in my name, that will I do, that the Father may be glorified in the Son. If ye shall ask anything in my name, I will do it. Now, notice Messiah. He didn't say he was the Father. He said the Father dwelt in him and he dwelt in the Father. He said no man can come to the Father except through him. So the object obviously is to get to the Father. The object was to get to the Father. But he said he is what? The way to the Father. Okay. Now that became the term that was used for the followers of the Messiah at that time. You see, they were all Israelites. Shabbat Shalom. They were all Israelites. Okay, they were all Israelites. There wasn't no Gentile at that time following Messiah. These people were all of the bloodline of Abraham. And so Messiah was telling them the way to Yah, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, is through him. Declaring himself to be Messiah, because all Israel understood that whenever Messiah was going to appear, that he would be the way to the Father. So this man, Yahushua of Nazareth, was saying, I am that man that you go to get to the Father. He said, you see me, you have seen the Father, because he said, if you don't believe my words, he said, believe the works. What works? He had raised people from the dead. He had raised people from the dead in front of witnesses. Okay. He had also healed all diseases. He would walk through towns and heal everyone in the town. So he come out the other side of the town, wasn't one sick. He had cleansed people from leprosy. Okay. He had fed thousands of people with just a couple of pieces of food. He had walked on water. So he's telling his disciples, you don't believe my word, believe what you have seen. Believe the works. He said, I don't do this of myself. He said, I do it of the Father. So he's talking to Israelites. Now I want to show you something. In Acts chapter 9, notice this now. And honestly, most people skip over it. And I also did at one point, but listen to this now. Watch this. Acts chapter 9. Shabbat Shalom. Acts chapter 9, beginning at verse 1. Now, Acts chapter 8 and Acts chapter 7. Acts chapter 7 is when the end of the 490-year prophecy was fulfilled. After that, what you notice in Acts chapter 8, let's go there for a second. What you notice in Acts chapter 8, beginning at verse 1, what you notice in Acts chapter 8, beginning at verse 1, after Stephen was stoned in Jerusalem, it said, and Shaul was consenting unto his death. And at that time, there was a great persecution against the church, which was at Jerusalem. And they were all scattered abroad throughout the regions of Judea and Samaria, except the apostles. So notice, and I want you to understand something. Again, these are only Israelites we're dealing with at this point. There was no Gentiles receiving this truth. And when they talk about the church, they're not talking about no Christian church. There was no Christian church. These are all Israelites. Okay, so among the Israelites, there was a division. There were those that were follower of what the Bible will call, I'm going to show you in a second, the way. The way is another term for Messiah, because he said, I am what? The way, the truth, and the life. No man comes unto the Father but by me. So there were those that were followers of the Messiah, which they said they were followers of the way. Then there were Israelites that didn't believe in the Messiah. They didn't believe Messiah had come. They didn't receive him. So there was division among the Israelites between those that were followers of the way and those that were not. But to the heathen that was watching them, they were all just Jews. The heathen didn't pay no attention to their little discrepancies about this Messiah. They were all just Israelites. They were all just Jews. Okay? Again, so when you get to Acts 8 now, they got scattered. That was the sign. They were scattered. And they will continue to be scattered until AD 70, when the whole nation will be scattered, right? So let's continue. This was still AD 34. Okay, now chapter 9. Let's go chapter 9, verse 1 and 2. Chapter 9, verse 1 and 2. This is the conversion of Shaul, right? But I want you to notice something. Acts chapter 9, verse 1 and 2. And Shaul, yet breathing out threatenings and slaughter against the disciples of the master, went unto the high priest and desired of him letters to Damascus and to the synagogues, that if he found any of this way, whether they were men or women, that he might bring them bound unto Jerusalem. Of this way. Now, if you look up the Greek translation, it will say, in the Greek translation, it will say the way with capital W. Because that is the followers of Messiah. So he was looking for Israelites that were followers of Messiah, or he said Israelites that were followers of the way. Which tells you something. They were not called Christians. They were followers of the way. They were disciples of Messiah. They were declaring that Yahushua of Nazareth was Messiah and that he was the way to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That without him, you could not get to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And there was a major contention, because to the Israelites that didn't trust in Messiah, didn't believe in him, to them, the way was through the sanctuary where the slaughter of the animals was taking place. That was the way. Messiah was saying he was the animal. He was the lamb that was slain. And he is the way. Okay? There was no Christian church. Now, at this time, heathen that looked about them, that would observe them, because there were miracles and power of the Father's Spirit among the followers of the way. And the heathen would notice there was a difference with these Jews than the other Jews. Okay, there was a difference with them. And so the heathen looked at them and called them Christianos. Because to the heathen, the word Christ means anointed one. And they used that for their pagan gods. They used that term. It was a common term for them to use for a pagan god, and they put it on Messiah. And they said, he is Christos. And the followers him Christianos. The disciples did not call themselves Christians. So the followers of Messiah being called the way, and now they being scattered from Jerusalem, and then after AD 70, again, in the pagan empire of Rome, they just looked at them all as Jews. Okay. And then there was a decree made because the pagans didn't like the Jews or the followers of the way. They didn't like either one of them. Okay. They couldn't stand either one. All right. So now you get to the point where you got Aquila and Priscilla. Let's see. Aquila and Priscilla, I'm going to go from Acts chapter. Let's see. All right, let's go Acts chapter 18. Acts chapter 18. Acts chapter 18. I'm going to go in Acts chapter 18. Yes, I'm going to start Acts chapter 18, verse 1. Okay, watch. Let's read Acts 18, verse 1. Watch this. After these things, Paul departed from Athens and came to Corinth. Now, at this point now, the apostle Paul, who was Shaul, was only talking to Israelites that have been scattered among the heathen. See, the Israelites scattered among the heathen were called Hellenists. It wasn't until it was revealed to him that he should start giving this message to Gentiles, people that weren't Hellenists, that wanted to locate, to walk in the way. But to the heathen, they were called Christians. Again, I'm going to stress to you, they didn't call themselves Christians. The heathen called them Christians. And over the course of centuries, that term stuck with them over the centuries. But they never called themselves Christian. So you look at history books and they'll say, this was the history of the Christian church. There was no Christian church except to the pagans. A pagan would look at it and say Christian church. But a true Israelite is going to look at it and say, no, this is the history of Israel as they've been scattered. Because that's the prophecy. We're going to be scattered. And the Gentiles were going to take us into captivity. Even Messiah say that. Okay? He is the way to the Father of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So now, chapter 18 of Acts. And I'm doing all this so that when we go to Daniel 11, you'll see, because this is the establishment of how Christianity was established. Okay. So Acts chapter 18. After these things, Paul departed from Athens and came to Corinth and found a certain Jew or Israelite named Aquila, born of Pontius, lately come from Italy with his wife Priscilla, because that Claudius had commanded all Jews depart from Rome. And he came unto them. See? So again, to the pagans, they didn't care about the way or who wasn't following the way. You was just a Jew or Israelite, and they just didn't like you. They didn't want you around. You were pain. So they said, nah, get out of Rome. And then later on, in the 3rd century, Diocletian tried to just rid the whole empire of them, to kill all the followers of the way, who Diocletian called Christians. But there was no Christianity with a cross and a white Jesus. That wasn't the situation. They were in synagogues. Okay? They were in synagogues. Okay? So now let's skip down chapter 18. I'm going to start at, let's see. I'm going to start at verse 24. Acts chapter 18, verse 24. And a certain Jew named Apollos, born at Alexandria, of course, in Africa, right? After the Greeks took it over and called Kemet Alexandria. So this man was born there, okay? Apollos, born at Alexandria, an eloquent man and mighty in the scriptures, and obviously he's an Israelite, came to Ephesus. This man was instructed in the way of the master. Being fervent in the spirit, he spake and taught fervently the things of the master, knowing only the baptism of John. So he didn't really know the way. He was fervent in the scripture, but he didn't understand about the way. Shabbat shalom. Verse 26. And he began to speak boldly in the synagogue, whom when Aquila and Priscilla had heard, they took him unto them and expounded unto him the way of Yah more perfectly. Now they expound to him the way. In fact, they're talking to him about Messiah. All right. And when he was disposed to go to pass to Achaia, the brethren wrote, exhorting the disciples of who? Messiah, who is the way. Okay. Exhorting the disciples to receive him, who, when he was come, helped them much which had be believed through grace. For he mightily convinced the Jews, and that publicly, showing by the scriptures that Yahushua was Messiah. Okay, so again, these are disciples of Messiah, who is called the way. All right, and then they were dwelling in synagogues. Now, after a while, they couldn't even go to the synagogue because of the division between those that were followers of the way and those that weren't. So sometimes they were in somebody's house. If you see Paul, he'll talk about churches that's in somebody's house or by a riverside. Okay? Because they couldn't go to synagogue after a while. Because they were followers of the way. Now, later on, I got to mention to you, in the 3rd century, the end of the 3rd century, beginning of the 4th century, Diocletian tried to kill all the followers of the way, including all the Jews too, in his whole empire, tried to kill them all. And that is recorded in Revelation under the 2nd church, Revelation chapter 2 under the 2nd church, which is the church at Smyrna. Notice Revelation chapter 2, beginning at verse 8. And unto the angel of the church in Smyrna write, these things saith the first and the last, which was dead and is alive. I know thy works and tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. So those who are not followers of the way, that call themselves Israelites, Messiah say they are the synagogue of Satan. See, many people think these are these Caucasians and Ashkenaz. They weren't even around yet. These were people that were Israelites that were not followers of the way. Okay? He said they're not even Jews. They followers of the synagogue of Satan. Okay? Verse 10. Fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that ye may be tried. Ye shall have tribulation 10 days. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life. Under Diocletian, there was a particular 10-year period where he was determined to kill everyone that was a follower of the way, who he called Christians. They did not call themselves Christians. Pagans called them Christians. That's why I say first in Antioch, the disciples were called Christian. They didn't put no sign say we Christians. The pagans looked at them and said they were Christians. It's a pagan term for the followers of the way, who is Messiah. I am the way, he said, the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father but by me. And that was the witness that the apostles bore. Part of their witness to the world, to the Israelite, was that Messiah, Yahushua of Nazareth, was the way. And that caused them to get great persecution because they were telling the Israelite, their fellow Israelites, that you cannot get to the Father Yah except through the way. You can't get to him anymore by the dead animal in the sanctuary. And then when the sanctuary is finally destroyed in AD 70 by Titus, right, under the I think it was Vespasian was the Roman emperor, and Titus was his general. Then later Titus became emperor, but under Vespasian, under Titus general, they destroyed Jerusalem and the sanctuary. Now it became more fully apparent when the disciples of the way said, see, you cannot get to the Father, the temple gone now, you can't, there's no sacrifice now, it's through the way. That just made them more mad. Okay, made the opposition to the Messiah more angry. So here, there's a particular 10-year period under Diocletian where he tried to just rid the earth of every follower of the way. But what ended up happening, the followers of the way just got bolder. You see, that's what I'm telling you. The grace is no weak thing, man. When the Most High puts his grace on us, he can cause us to walk through fire, water, whatever. Okay, and so as Diocletian was trying to kill him, more of them came. More pagans became followers of the way. Until the point now where the Apostle Paul is writing to the Ephesians, and I want you to notice what he said. See, most people only follow part of a scripture. Christians are good for this. They look at one part of a scripture, leave the rest of it, and then make a doctrine out of that one part that they follow. They do that all the time. But you got to read the whole thing. Paul writes epistles called letters, right? So you got to read the letter in its context, right? And you'll see the truth. Notice again, Ephesians, we're going to come back to Revelation in a minute, but Ephesians chapter 2, verse 1. And you, there's come about you, Ephesians, that are converts to the way, you hath he quickened. You will never hear Paul call anybody a Christian in any of his epistles. You never hear him, you never read him do that. Because they did not call each other, again, Christian. Only unbelieving pagans called them Christians. Okay? And you hath he quickened, who were dead in trespasses and sins, wherein time past, before you became followers of the way, you walked according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that now worketh in the children of disobedience, among whom also we all had our conversation in time past in the lust of our flesh, fulfilling the desires of the flesh and of the mind, and were by nature children of wrath, even as others. But Yah, who is rich in mercy, for his great love wherewith he loved us, even when we were dead in sins, hath quickened us together with Messiah. By grace ye are saved, and hath raised us up together and made us sit together in heavenly places in Messiah, Yahushua, that in the ages to come he might show the exceeding riches of his grace and his kindness toward us through Messiah, Yahushua, that is, through the way. For by grace are ye saved through faith, and that not of yourselves, it is the gift of Yah, not of works, lest any man should boast. Now let's stop here. Isn't that where the Christians stop? We're saved by grace. And then they go on off about what grace means, as if you could just continue in sin, eat whichever you want, live whatever kind of way you want, and still be saved because you just once saved, always saved, and you just in grace, right? They stop right there. But we got to read past this to understand what's going on, because he said, first of all, he said, he might show the exceeding grace of his kindness toward us through the way, that is the Hebrew Messiah, the way to the Father, the God of Israel. I've shown myself to no other people but Israel. So he's talking about the God of Israel, the way to that God, right? Watch. Not of works, lest any man should boast. And it's true. We don't earn salvation. Not even the Israelite. We are saved through faith in Messiah. I'm sorry. We are saved by faith in Messiah because he's our Messiah. The heathen are saved through faith in our Messiah. Okay? Through faith in the Messiah, who is the way to the Hebrew God. Yeah. Right? Now, let's continue. Verse 10, watch this. For we are his workmanship. Whose workmanship? The Father's workmanship. Created in Messiah Yahushua unto good works, which Yah hath ordained that we should walk in them. Wherefore, remember, watch this now. Remember that he's talking to Gentile converts to the way at Ephesus. Gentile converts to the way that was at Ephesus. Okay? Ye being in time past Gentiles, in time past Gentiles in the flesh, who are called uncircumcision by that which is called the circumcision in the flesh by hands. In other words, when he says the circumcision in the flesh by hands, he's talking about natural born Israelites. He said, you were called Gentiles or called uncircumcision by us who are natural born Israelites. That's what you used to be. That at that time, when you were just Gentiles, you were without Messiah, being aliens from what? The Christian church. Aliens from what? Verse 12. Aliens from the commonwealth of Israel. Before you met the way, you were aliens and uncircumcision from the commonwealth of Israel and strangers from the covenants of promise. There's an implication here that we need to understand. So before these Gentiles received the way, they were just Gentiles, uncircumcised, and strangers from the commonwealth of Israel, and they did not partake in the covenants of promise. That is, the promises of all the prophets of the Old Testament, what we call the Old Testament. They were not part of that because they were uncircumcised Gentiles, and they were not in the way, which implies, very important implication, that once they received the way, which is the way to the Israelite God, they became part of the commonwealth of Israel. They became partakers of the covenants of promise through grace. You understand? So, after that, Diocletian trying to destroy all the followers of the way and couldn't. After him came Constantine the First. And after him came what they call Constantine the Great. 4th century now you're in. Constantine the Great decided, I'm going to become a Christian. See, it wasn't like the Israelites they weren't calling themselves Christian, but this pagan emperor said, I'm going to be a Christian because I want peace with you guys. I want peace with you guys. But I need to incorporate some of my religion with Christianity. Let's mix it. In other words, today we would call that ecumenicalism. We serve the same God. So he wanted to incorporate a paganized Messiah and call that the way. This is the origin of modern Christianity. And so Constantine was part of, which we're going to read about in Daniel 11, the transformation from the Roman Empire to the Holy Roman Empire. Do you see the difference? He was the beginning of the transformation from the Roman Empire to the Holy Roman Empire. The Holy Roman Empire was based in a domination of a religion that was now established through Constantine that was called Christianity. And they had their own Messiah, and that's why you had some of the bloodline Israelites and some of the original converts from the uncircumcised that became followers of the Israelite way to the Father rejected this. And because they rejected it, some received it And those that received it became allies of Constantine, and those that rejected it became enemies of Constantine. And they had some of their former brethren with Constantine against them. Now you go now from the 4th century, you go to the 5th century, and then the 6th century in 508 AD, and we're going to talk more about that as we get into Daniel 11 and 12. Clovis is the king of France in 508 AD. Clovis the First was his name. He became a convert to Christianity. He was a French king, but he was the most powerful king in Europe, and he became followers of Christianity. And he declared that the bishop of the Holy Roman Empire, the bishop of Rome, is the corrector of all heretics. Then you had some battling over this religion for the next 30 years until you get to Justinian, who was the first recognized emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, 538 AD. Okay? And now you have an establishment of a Christianity which would dominate Europe and the world for the next 1,260 years. We're going to talk more about that. And for over 1,000 years, you have this religion called Christianity. Now, after a while, it took over. And that's when the Bible says the truth would be cast down to the ground. It said that the abomination maketh desolate be set up. And it got to the point where the abomination maketh desolate was set up to the point where they forgot all about the true Hebrew called the way. Therefore, they weren't even worshiping the Father. They had another God. And the God was based in an institution called the Roman Catholic Church. After the Roman Catholic Church was established at the end of that 1,260-year period, during the course of that time, you had a couple of entities coming against it. You had the Protestant movement, the Reformation. These are people that were Roman Catholics that were protesting some of the doctrines and practices of the Holy Roman Empire. They wanted to reform the Holy Roman Empire. They never wanted to destroy it. And that's where you get evangelical Christianity churches. All of these Christian churches come out of the Holy Roman Empire as a Protestants. You also have what the Bible brings up in Revelation chapter 9, the 5th angel, or the 5th trumpet, Islam. See, so in 508, you had Clovis being converted and saying, the Roman Empire, the Holy Roman Empire is the corrector of all heretics. That's Christianity right there. The next century, the 7th century, an Arab man in the middle of the desert named Muhammad marries an older woman named Khadijah, and they begin to form what became Islam. Okay? They began what became Islam, and that caught on like wildfire. So that in Revelation chapter 9, you're representing Islam and Muhammad attacking Rome. Because what they were doing after this religion, this new religion called Islam, and it was new. See, Islamic people, people in the Nation of Islam will tell you they go back to Jesus and they go back. No, they don't. They started in the 7th century with this Arab man named Muhammad. There was no Islam before that. And even Malcolm X was deceived, talking about Messiah was Muslim. No, he was not. He was an Israelite of the tribe of Judah. It's disrespectful to call him a Muslim. Islam came from an Arab. The Most High never chose any Arab man as his prophet. Never. Nowhere in the Bible. None. And what they did is almost like they put in the Quran all of the names of the Israelite prophets as if they're all the same. That's disrespectful. It's disrespectful. Because it's like saying like this. You know, McDonald's, the hamburger place, they got 2 golden arches and a clown in the front, right? And it's called McDonald's, right? Well, if somebody made a hamburger place, put 2 golden arches and a clown in the front and called it McDougal's. It's not McDonald's, but they copy McDonald's, call it McDougal's. That's what Islam is. They try to use Israelite prophets to justify their existence, to justify and act like they're truth too. No, ain't no Arab prophets in the Bible. He never chose an Arab prophet. His prophets all come from the bloodline of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, especially Jacob, because the Arabs are Semites. They're Semites, but they're not from Jacob. There's a lot of Semites that's not from Jacob. So they came in the 7th century. And then they came, and on the point of their sword, they spread Islam through the whole, what we call the Middle East, North Africa, West Africa, East Africa. They came to India. They came everywhere. And they effectively attacked India in such a way that India was divided. Because Pakistan is on the east side of India, and Bangladesh is on the west side of India. And all them people Indians, what divides them? Islam. Pakistan became Islam. There are Indians that converted to Islam. Bangladesh are Indians that converted to Islam. They're all Indians. They're all the same blood. Okay? And that's as a result of how Islam goes into other nations, and they've been doing that for their whole career. Just like Christianity, they will go into other nations and force you to become Islamic, or they will kill you. When they can get away with that, they'll do it. Okay? So were Christians. Same thing. So that's the 6th and the 7th centuries where you get Islam, and now Islam is attacking Christianity. And that attack was thwarted by the Christians. But that established what became known now as the Ottoman Empire. What used to be Constantinople on the east of Rome became the Ottoman Empire, became Turkey, right? It became, what's the name of that city now? It's not Constantinople anymore. Istanbul. It became Istanbul. Yeah. Exactly. Okay. So that's the history. And that's what we're going to see in Daniel 11. All that history is going to be there. And it's going to show you how it's going to match what we're talking about here. So here in Revelation chapter 9, it shows you the attack of Islam against the Roman Catholic Church. It's like they fighting each other. See what I'm saying? Neither of them are following the Father. Yeah, they're not following the way. They're following their own way, but they fight each other. Okay. Revelation chapter 9, beginning at verse 1. And the 5th angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven into the earth. And to him was given the key of the bottomless pit. And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit, as the smoke of a great furnace. And the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth. And unto them was given power, as scorpions of the earth have power. And it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of Yah in their foreheads. And to them it was given that they should not kill them, but that they should torment them 5 months. And their torment was as the torment of a scorpion when it striketh a man. 5 months is 150 years. That's how long they were going at it before it settled into the Ottoman Empire and, of course, the Holy Roman Empire. Okay, so that, brethren, is what we're going to see when we go into Daniel 11. You're going to see the back and forth fighting between King of the North, King of the South, until it ends up here. And then from here in the 5th, when you get to the 6th, 144,000 come on the scene. 144,000 come on the scene. And they come on the scene amidst of the enemy of righteousness, establishing Islam, establishing Christianity, and wiping away, right? Wiping away the daily sacrifice, which represents the true Israelites. Okay. And then 144,000 are brought forth with the awakening of the true Israelites. The awakening, which is now here. Now here. Okay. And we're getting ready to bring forth the two witnesses, which is the two witnesses again. And I just want to stress this: the true witnesses. Many people say, "Well, that's Elijah and Moses." No, it's not them particularly. It's what they represent, though. Moses, remember, the Bible said the law came through Moses. Grace and truth came from Messiah Yahushua. And so I say the law, the instructions, the statutes and judgment given through Moses. It was given in power. The power came through Messiah, but before that, the power came through Elijah. Elijah represented a demonstration of the power of Yah on Mount Carmel. So the 144,000 will represent both of these. They'll represent the law with the statutes and commandments and the power. That's why I call it two witnesses. And also the two witnesses are also the two tables of testimony, because it's called the tables of witness. The covenant is also called the tables of witness because they're witnessing to the character of the Father. So is the 144,000. So we're being prepared right now to go through that part, which is Revelation chapter 11, right before the seventh angel sounds. Okay? We're almost there. We're very close now, very close. All right? So with all that history, let's go back to Daniel chapter 11. And we're going to start off where we finished last night. We're going to start off where the Persian Empire is gone, and the Greek Empire started, and then that was gone and divided among four generals, and you end up with King of the North and King of the South. Okay, and that's how it's going to be all the way through to the end. Because right now, as I said, it's going to transform from the Roman Empire into the Holy Roman Empire. Holy Rome is with another term for Christianity and the Catholic Church. Holy Rome. Okay, they call it the Holy Roman Empire. Now, I want to just bring up one more thing that Daniel mentioned in Daniel chapter 2. Daniel chapter 2, when he was talking about the feet that were of iron and clay in the statue, right? Which we know the iron is Rome. And then by the time you get to the iron and the feet, it's the Holy Roman Empire. Look, you still got that right now. Why? Because you still got a Catholic Church. If you think the Catholic Church has given up the title of the Holy Roman Empire, you are bugging. They're still the Holy Roman Empire. And through their Jesuit order, they have infiltrated every area of life. This Amy Barrett that just became Supreme Court Justice is the seventh Roman Catholic on the Supreme Court, the seventh out of 9. And the other two are Ashkenazi Jews, Breyer and Kagan. And Breyer in his 80s. And now you got President Biden. He's going. I'm going to tell you one thing I can completely guarantee. The next one, if he appoints the next or Kamala Harris, really they want Kamala Harris to be president. I'm trying to tell you right now. Biden, I'll be surprised if he make it through his first year president. I'd be surprised if he make it through his first year. Kamala Harris is going to be the president, okay? And they're going to have her appoint either an Ashkenazi or a Catholic. And they're going to tell you that this person is liberal. Ain't no such thing as liberal and conservative. That's a paradigm that Rome has placed on everybody to mess your head up. There ain't such thing. Don't get caught up in that. There are 7 Supreme Court justices of the most powerful court in the United States. 7 that are of the same religion, Roman Catholicism. Just think about that. You understand? What? Are they the only ones that can be Supreme Court justice? Well, apparently. Why do you think that is? Because they done took over. The Holy Roman Empire took it over. Took it over. So you got in the Senate, you got Mitch McConnell, who's an evangelical Christian, that's Roman. And then the minority leader in the Senate is Chuck Schumer, an Ashkenazi Jew. Then you have in the House majority leader, Nancy Pelosi, a Roman Catholic. And to the Republican, the House minority leader, McCarthy, is a Roman Catholic. You think this is accidental? And while everybody looking at conservative and liberal, this is what they done did. Took over. Took over. Okay? They took over. And I just gave you a small example. Every Christian church is completely taken over and infiltrated and controlled by Holy Rome. All of them. Every single last one. Especially these big denominations, they're all controlled by Rome. They control everyone, and their Jesuit teachers that are already taught in all the colleges. You think all these what do you think these theological seminaries come out of there, and they're usually dumber than when they come in? They're getting taught Catholicism. Okay, they don't call it Catholicism, but that's what it is. And then everybody sends their kids in the hood when you can get there to the Catholic school. Is that correct? Get out the hood, got to go to the Catholic school. You think that's accidental? It's not accidental. It is not accidental. They create the hood, they create the way out, their own way. Okay, so that you got the planet Earth and majority of people in it, just as the Bible say, worshiping the dragon and the beast who got his power, seat, and authority from the dragon. And that the little beast that comes up out the earth that looks like a lamb and speaks like a dragon causes the whole earth to worship the first beast, the Holy Roman. Joe Biden is what? A Roman Catholic. Joe Biden is what? A Roman Catholic. Now you say Donald Trump wasn't Roman Catholic. Donald Trump ain't nothing but a greedy orange man. But he appointed 3 Roman Catholics to the Supreme Court. You think that's accidental? He appointed 3 Roman Catholics to the Supreme Court: Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, and Amy Barrett. And that was his purpose. His purpose was twofold. His purpose was to appoint these Catholic judges to the Supreme Court, which he has done. That was part of his purpose. And his purpose was to be the savior of white supremacy. Why do you think these people don't care what he says or does? And they will follow him to the death because he is the savior of white supremacy. That's what they consider him. Okay, that was his purpose. And now they finished with him, especially the Catholic part. They finished with him. That's why you got Biden now, who is a Roman Catholic. And he's only going to be there for a little while because Kamala Harris is going to be the president. Mark my words, she's going to be the president. We ain't vote for her, but she's going to be the president. Okay, that's where we're headed. Okay, Daniel. So Daniel chapter 2 with the iron and clay. Daniel chapter 2. I'm going to begin at verse 42. As the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. Whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, so they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave to one another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. See, so they're going to use marriage and alliances to try to unite the kingdom. But it will never be truly united because of how wicked it is, because wickedness naturally hates, and it hates each other. Okay? They're trying to unite the kingdom. And that's their whole fight for the last 500 years. That's why you got all these Jesuits take over all these institutions. But even in that scenario, they are not completely united. Because everybody wants power. And everybody's greedy. That's what it comes down to. Okay. Now, back to Daniel 11. All right, let's go through this piece by piece. So let's start off where we are. You got the king of the north, which is Seleucus, and the king of the south, which is Ptolemy. So let's begin reading. Beginning at verse 4. This is where we left off last night. Beginning at verse 4. Okay, coming out of the divisions that was Alexander the Great's empire. And when he shall stand up, that is Alexander the Great, his kingdom shall be broken and shall be divided toward the 4 winds of heaven, not to his posterity, nor according to his dominion which he ruled. For his kingdom shall be plucked up even for others beside those. Okay, it shall be plucked up even for others beside those. Beside those who? Beside those 4. Okay, Seleucus, Cassandra, Lysimachus, Ptolemy. It's going to be plucked up even for others aside them. So in other words, it's already telling us these are just the beginning. At the end, it's going to be others, and we know who they are. It's going to be Islam. It's going to be the Holy Roman Empire. Okay, we already know who they are. Others beside those. Okay, So now between here, verse 4, and when you get to the point, which is, I'm going to tell you where it is. When you get to 33, actually 32 and 33 is now you're going from Roman Empire to Holy Roman Empire. 32 and 33 is when Constantine shows up. Okay. And that, and that is also illustrated in the fourth church of the seven churches of Revelation, Pergamos. So you have first Ephesus, Smyrna, then Pergamos, and then that's Constantine and Pergamos, because they mentioned Balaam, selling out like some of the brothers did when they went from the Hebrew way of the Hebrew Messiah to the Father, to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to the pagan way, a pagan Messiah, who also later became a Caucasian European man, completely transformed to a different thing and a different God. Okay, completely transformed. Okay. Now, so when you get to 30, I'm giving you a way mark now. You get to 32, that's going to be Constantine, right? So the rest of this is that whole battle and skirmishes and mixing the seeds, trying to unite the empire. But because of greed and thirst and lust for power, which is the devil's MO, it never gets united. Okay. Until 538 in the 6th century, okay, when Justinian decides we're going to fight. And that's when the 3 horns were plucked up by the roots, and the little horn became the master. That little horn being the Holy Roman Empire, the papal Rome. Okay, and Justinian was the king now of the Holy Roman Empire, and he had help from the other 7 horns of the European powers that fought with him to establish the Holy Roman Empire as the only religion in Europe. And then they wanted to establish the whole earth as the only religion, Roman Catholic Christianity. Of course, they had a problem because they had to battle against Islam, and it didn't quite work. Okay. Let's go now, verse 5. And the king of the south, that is Ptolemy, based in Alexandria, the king of the south shall be strong, and one of his princes, that is Ptolemy, had a son, a prince. So he was strong, and his son became a successor, and he was strong, one of his princes. And he shall be strong above him. So he had a son that took over for him that was strong, okay, powerful, right? And have dominion, and his dominion shall be for a great dominion. So Ptolemy had children. One of his children, a prince, took over when Ptolemy died and became more stronger in the south. Okay, became more stronger in the south. Okay. And in the end of years, they shall join themselves together, for the king's daughter of the south shall come to the king of the north to make an agreement. So now Ptolemy's prince becomes a powerful king in the south. They want to consolidate the kingdom. So the Ptolemy's prince had a daughter, and they wanted the daughter to marry the royalty that was in the king of the north's kingdom, hoping to unite the kingdom. Y'all follow me so far? So Ptolemy's granddaughter would marry somebody in the king of the north's kingdom in an attempt through their marriage to unite the kingdom. Y'all follow me so far? Okay, because this is going to get complicated. I'm just trying to stop at each step so we follow what's going on here. Okay, so the king of the south's son had a daughter, and that daughter made an arranged marriage with the king of the north family to consolidate the kingdom. This is not unusual, right? We see that all the time, especially in Europe. This became one of the hallmarks. In Europe, they only marry their cousins. When there was monarchies, Spain's king, France's king, Germany's king, Belgium's king, England's king, they all, Scottish king, they all married each other's cousins because they were vying to try to put one bloodline on all the thrones. Of course, it all broke up because now we got presidents and stuff. But still, some people will tell you that whoever becomes president of the United States is usually some distant cousin of royalty, of European royalty, because they're trying to keep one blood on the throne. okay, of whatever kingdom. And Rome is saying, y'all can do that, but all y'all bow to me. And they do. Okay. Then you got the Ashkenazi say, we don't care what you do, as long as we run, long as we handling the money. And that's what they do. Okay. Long as we handle the money, you can do what you want. That's why they run the Federal Reserve Bank. They call them banksters. They're like gangsters in banks. That's what they do. Okay. You know, it's interesting though. This whole system, I mean, men, women, children involved in the system, marrying and giving in marriage, and Democrats, Republicans, and Judaism and Islam. You know, the whole thing is getting ready to be just wiped away. Isn't that amazing? Like the Most High going to destroy the whole shooting match. And the only thing left are those repentant ones that are following the way, the Hebrew Messiah, the true way to the Father. Okay. I mean, Christianity got to the point where you don't even hear Christians talk about the Father. It's only Jesus, right? And if you're in the Catholic Church, it's Mary. And in both cases, the church is above all that. You can't leave the church, and they call it just like that, the church. And they made their own institution. Whereas in the Bible, the church is a called out people. The Israelites are the only called out people. That's why Stephen called it the church in the wilderness, because it was the called out people from Egypt. And the Most High said, I'm going to call out my people a second time. Isaiah chapter 11, Jeremiah chapter 23. From the four corners of the earth where they've been scattered. His people, that is the church. That's why he says the body of Messiah, the body of the way to the Father. Okay. Here we go. Daniel chapter 11. So now they try to unite the kingdom in marriage. Try to unite the kingdom in marriage. Verse 5. And the king of the south shall be strong in one of his princes, and he shall be strong above him and have dominion. His dominion shall be a great dominion. And in the end of the years, they shall join themselves together, for the king's daughter of the south shall come to the king of the north to make an agreement. But she shall not retain the power of the arm, neither shall he stand nor his arm, but she shall be given up, and they that brought her, and he that begot her, and he that strengthened her in these times. So that plan down the drain. So that plan down the drain. And it made the southern kingdom weaker. That's what happened right here. So that marriage that was designed to unite the kingdom, when the southern kingdom was the strong part, made the kingdom weaker, and the plan went down the drain. Now what? Verse 7. But out of a branch of her roots, that is, one of her children or one of her children's children, shall one stand up in his estate, and shall come with an army, and shall enter into the fortress of the king of the north. So one of her children, though the situation didn't work the way they wanted to, didn't unite the kingdom, she has a child or a grandchild that now becomes king of the south, and he comes with an army to the king of the north. So now they were trying to unite the kingdom through marriage. That went down the drain. So now they gather an army, and they're just going to come take the north. Okay, that's what they're, right? They're going to just come take it. But out of a branch of her root shall one stand up in his estate, which shall come with an army, and shall enter into the fortress of the king of the north, and shall deal against him, and shall prevail, and shall also carry captives into Egypt, Alexandria, right? Mizraim, Alexandria, and their gods, with their princes, and with precious vessels of silver and gold, and he shall continue more years in the king of the north. So he went to the king of the north, and he won. So now the kingdom is established in the south, in Alexandria, Egypt, under Ptolemy's empire, under the descendants of Ptolemy. Okay, for a little while. Let's continue. Verse 9. So the king of the south shall come into his kingdom, and shall return into his own land. So he's established his kingdom. He beat the king of the north. And now it appears that the king of the south is going to be the most powerful one on the planet as having overcome the king of the north. But no, not quite. Verse 10. But his sons, when it says his sons, talking about the king of the north that was overcome by the king of the south. So now we're back to the king of the north at verse 10. But his sons shall be stirred up and shall assemble a multitude of great forces, and one shall certainly come and overflow and pass through. Then shall he return and be stirred up even to his fortress. And the king of the south shall be moved with choler and shall come forth and fight with him. Even with the king of the north, he shall set forth a great multitude, but the multitude shall be given into his hand. At this point, Daniel chapter 11, verse 11, you are now dealing with the establishment of the Roman Empire. The king of the north now has overcome the king of the south. And you're dealing with Julius Caesar in the beginning of what became the Roman Empire. Verse 12. And when he had taken away the multitude, his heart shall be lifted up, and he shall cast down many 10,000s, but he shall not be strengthened by it. For the king of the north shall return and shall set forth a multitude greater than the former, and shall certainly come after certain years with a great army and with much riches. And in those times there shall many stand up against the king of the south, and also the robbers of thy people shall exalt themselves to establish division, but they shall fall. Let me explain. And this is actually in the Apocrypha under the Maccabees. Okay, and again, I don't believe the Apocrypha is inspired at all. It's not an inspired book, but it does have history in it. And in the Maccabees, in the first and second Maccabees, what happened during this period of the fighting between the two kings, north and south, between Rome and the kingdom of Ptolemy, there were people that would come in and raid Israel, raid them of vessels that were in the temple or had been in the temple, raid them of gold and take them. That's why I call it this time. It said, for the king of north shall return and certainly shall come after years, blah, 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 blah. Where were we? Verse 12, verse 13. Wait. And when he had taken away the multitude, his heart shall be lifted up, and he shall cast down many 10,000, but he shall not be strengthened by it. For the king of the north shall return and shall set forth a multitude greater than the former, and shall certainly come after many years with great armies and with much riches. And in those times there shall many stand up against the king of the south. Also the robbers of thy people shall exalt themselves to establish division, but they shall fall. So you have other entities that were taking advantage of the weakness of the south after the north was now establishing its power under now Rome. And they were robbing Israel. They were robbing and taking advantage of Israel, which is when you get to the Maccabees are a representation of a family of Levites that were fighting against this. And all of the family ended up getting killed. At the end of the story of the Maccabees, each Maccabee was wiped out. But they were the story of the Maccabees in Apocrypha is telling you how valiant they were, how valiant they fought, and blah, 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 blah. And they did fight valiantly according to the story of the Maccabees, but they were wiped out at the end. They were wiped out at the end. Okay. And they tried everything. They were fighters, they made deals, but they were people that were always scheming to rob them. And of course, that would make sense, right? Because the Most High was not with them, right? The Most High was not with them because they were under the punishment now. They're under punishment. This is before Messiah, right? So the Roman Empire, again, from Daniel's statute, was ordained to end up becoming the power. And they were going to be over Yah's chosen. Daniel saw that. Cast the truth to the ground, practice and prosper. Okay, that's what was going on. So now you have the discovery, the establishment of the Roman Empire. So the king of the north shall come, verse 15, and cast up a mount and take the most fenced cities, and the arms of the south shall not withstand, neither his chosen people, neither shall there be any any strength to withstand. But he shall come against him, shall do according to his own will, and none shall stand before him, and he shall stand in the glorious land. Who's the glorious land? Testing. Who's the glorious land? Tell me. Y'all should know that. Who's the glorious land that he's going to stand in, that he stood up, that king of the north, Roman Empire came over and stood in? Who's the glorious land? It's Israel. The glorious land is always Israel. Always Israel. The Bible says in Ezekiel, notice Ezekiel chapter 20. Ezekiel 20, verse 5 and 6. Ezekiel 20, verse 5 and 6. And say unto them, thus saith the Most High Yahweh, in the day when I chose Israel and lifted up my hand unto the seed of the house of Jacob, and made myself known unto them in the land of Egypt, when I lifted up my hand unto them, saying, I am Yahweh, your Most High, in that day that I lifted up my hand unto them to bring them forth of the land of Egypt into a land that I had spied for them, flowing with milk and honey, which is what? The glory of all lands. That's Israel. Okay, that's the promised land. So here in Daniel chapter 11, when you get to verse 16, now you have the establishment of Roman Empire, and they have what they call they have I want to say offices, but not offices. They have established what's that word when they have an army in your land? I forgot the name of the word, but they had established Israel as part of their empire. They had established that land as part of their land, and they had representations there, which of course Pontius Pilate was a representative there of Rome, and they did that for all the nations and the then known world. That's why the Roman Empire said the sun never set on the Roman Empire, because they were in all nations. And that's why I said here, none shall stand. He shall stand in the glorious land, which by his hand shall be consumed. Yes. So by the Roman power, of course, Israelite ended up at some point being destroyed. And we're going to talk about that more. Now let's take a break. Let's stop here because we've covered a lot today, right, at this point. I'm going to stop here because at the next section, we're going to go in from the Roman Empire to the Holy Roman Empire. And we're going to see the transformation from the Roman Empire to the Holy Roman that we talked about in this section. We're going to review it now in Daniel 11. And you're going to see that. And we're going to come into where we are now, where we're about to go. Okay, so I'm going to stop here, and for those of you that will not be able to come back, may the Most High bless you and keep you, and cause his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you, and lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Shalom. We'll come back at 1 o'clock Eastern.